Oh man, guys, I just got the brand new Apple iPhone. This thing has such crazy technology, like a touch screen with multi-gesture support, wireless communications, and an iPod. Well, guess what? It also has a camera, and we are going to be comparing the original iPhone 1 camera to the 13 Pro Mega Max Ultra or whatever. So yeah, obviously this isn't going to be as good as that, but we are going to leverage AI to make the original iPhone photos way better. We've got a brand new phone in the mailbox waiting just for us. We're gonna do some camera tests.
Brand new iPhone from Russia.
Wait, is it really from Russia?
Yeah.
Dang, okay. Yeah, let's go see if it's here. Studio 4.
What the
Maybe it's in the Studio 3 mailbox?
Yeah, there
Wait,
we
what
go.
the heck? What is... Dude, look at all this freaking spam.
Dude, no one's checked this for like years.
Dude, like legitimately, this is post-stamped for 2016.
What?
Are you serious? This is for Jimmy. Jimmy has not lived here in 10 years. Jimmy, we have your mail, dude. Come get it. No new iPhone, a lot of old mail. That might actually legitimately be a bit of a problem.
Here?
No, not here.
What?
Found a lot of old mail. There's mail in there from 5 years ago, guys.
I haven't checked 3 at all.
So regardless, that means we do not have an iPhone. We don't have the old iPhone or the new iPhone. How are we gonna do this video? From Russia with love. As you can see, our package arrived in excellent condition. Yeah, it looks like it just got squished here and just like the seal got pushed outwards. But this should be the original iPhone that was launched in June of 2007. Apparently it's already been activated, or maybe it's jailbroken. We're not exactly clear, but hopefully it turns on and hopefully it works. Dude, the Russian hackers have already had their way with this. What if they've installed spyware on this?
Probably have.
Literally it was this close to just falling out of the package. And it's pretty nuts to have in my hand. Look how small this iPhone is. Okay, get that old camera out of here. That camera's old. That's an 11 Pro.
Hey.
Where's my phone? So this is an iPhone 12 Pro Max. It is not the newest one because the newest one literally came out last week. But for now, you know what? We use what we have, and I have last year's model. Because you know what? I actually buy these with my own money, and I don't feel like spending $1,200 on the new one when I spent that last year on the old one. This piece of crap old one. So, this project is only a go if this has already been activated and will actually boot up to the home screen. If I turn this on and it wants me to activate it in any form or fashion, chances are this thing's dead in the water and we gotta regroup.
Yeah!
We're in! We are in! Russian hackers, thank you. Now, get out of my phone. Okay, there's so much that is archaic about everything here, but it's kind of amusing how essentially the UI is mostly the same. Notice how there's no other screen? There's no app store. These were all the apps that existed, period. No one had an ability to create an app at the time.
Page?
No, that's what I'm saying. There's no other page. This is it.
Where do you put all your apps?
There were no apps. That's what I'm trying to say. They didn't exist. Dude, this is a thick boy, but it's also just so small. Back when people didn't realize they wanted huge phones. The main reason phones were so small back in 2007 is that people were much smaller back then. Their hands have grown a lot in the last 10 years. The big phones came first, and the hands had to adapt. Same reason why people didn't have laps until laptops were invented. The whole reason we have this phone is to look at the camera. But a bit of context. The first iPhone had one camera that was 2 megapixels. The newest iPhones have 4 cameras that are 12 megapixels each.
Oh my gosh, it was like me mom's first phone.
This is kind of the camera under ideal conditions, but look how laggy that screen is. There's so much jello. There's a whole concept called rolling shutter. It's the idea where an image sensor actually captures it from left to right over time. A global shutter captures the entire image at the same time, but that requires more energy, so most cameras today, like 99% of them, they do what's called the rolling shutter effect. And we are seeing that hardcore right now, just with a little bit of motion. What should I take my first photo of? Oh, of you. All right, first photo is of Nick. We got Jordan in the background too.
Dude, is this what I would look like in 2007?
Okay, so right away, I'm noticing a definite amount of motion blur because I wasn't able to hold the camera super steady, and I guess that shutter was like, clunk, as opposed to the new iPhone shutters, which are like, I mean, the screen resolution is 320 by 480 compared to like 2700p on this guy. Oh my goodness. So obviously the iPhone 1 is old, but I wanted to see someone else's opinion about it. So hey guys, this is Austin.
Oh, hi, I'm just eating your cookies.
Oh man, dude, that was my cookie. Okay. All right, you left it. I
I'll
appreciate
trade
it.
you.
Okay, sounds good. That's
Thanks,
that's an equal
appreciate
trade.
One iPhone per cookie? That's excellent. Yo, this is OG iPhone, right?
It is indeed.
The iPhone 1 was such a ridiculous device. Like, this thing was so ahead of its time. And you remember how exciting it was when Steve Jobs walks out and goes, "It's an iPod, it's a phone, it's an internet communicator."
It's literally like one of the best like keynotes I've ever seen. I go back to it every now and then just to kind of like relive that moment.
You know what he didn't say? It's a camera, because not good. They got better over the following years, but it wasn't until I'd say the iPhone like 3GS that the camera started to get decent, but the iPhone 13 Pro camera. This is the best camera setup on any phone I've ever tried. The main sensor on this, it's approaching a 1-inch sensor, which is like what you get on like a Sony RX 100.
Oh my God.
It is huge. And plus they've got the ultra wide and the telephoto, which they also need to cram in here. So the fact that the camera bump is only this big actually is fairly impressive.
So where do you think camera tech on phones is heading?
It's almost more so about the processing than the hardware, right? Because the real reason why any modern smartphone looks good as far as video or photos is because of the incredible amount of processing they're doing to make the cameras actually better.
One thing I'd like to try is to compare the 12 Pro Max to the 13.
Yeah, so got it, nailed it.
Perfect timing.
Perfect timing. I was like, oh, you're standing right in front of the water cooler.
Whoa! Wait, why is this so much more vibrant? Comparing the fruit and like the table?
It does to me look a little maybe oversaturated, but it does look sharper too. Looking like the details on the glass here. So one other thing that is new on the iPhone 13, you have photographic styles.
Oh.
You can enable, essentially it's like having like picture profiles on your camera. So that is probably part of the reason is I just like to shoot with the rich contrast because it looks a little bit punchier.
Sure, yeah. I had to throw on a bunch of like sharpening and exposure and it now kind of looks more crunchy.
What is that, an iPhone 1 over there you got over here?
Yeah, it is. Obviously, a lot has changed with the camera technology on the first iPhone versus the newest ones, but I kind of want to talk about that evolution a little bit because we've started deviating away from hardware upgrades and started going towards software upgrades behind the scenes that utilize the hardware better than we ever could have before. I'm not interested in comparing the quality of the original iPhone photos to the new ones. Obviously, the new ones are gonna be better, but I wanna know why the new iPhone photos look so good considering the sensors inside the phones aren't. We're gonna be comparing things like the resolution, how it handles exposure, both overexposure and underexposure. How does it handle motion blur? How does it handle rolling shutter? These are all things I kinda wanna compare a new phone to the original phone. If we're gonna be running scientific experiments, gotta dress the part. Oh my God. Okay, so let's do some science. So we're gonna go down to the end of the street where there's an overpass, but while we get there, let's test out some motion blur shots and rolling shutter.
Dude, this is the famous area.
Look at C-Mike over here riding the one wheel on the road. Except not. With this kind of setting, we're really starting to test the motion blur. Because the modern phone, there's plenty of light to have a super crisp image, but the original iPhone, I have a feeling this is not enough light. Unless I'm super steady, the images I take here are gonna be a little blurry. Really pushing the limits of dynamic range. I got the shot. Okay. My knee.
There's sewage pipes.
I'm gonna take an image like this. Let's see how it handles the power lines. Resolution test. We're gonna look at some fine details like power lines.
Is that Colby?
Yeah, it's Colby. This is a 37mm equivalent lens, so it's kind of cropped in. We take for granted that just the regular lens is so wide, and that's before we even go to the ultra wide or the telephoto. You know, in the future, phones are just gonna be littered with cameras. So now that we did our outdoor tests, we should actually try to do some indoor tests as well because there's not a lot of light indoors. Oh boy, this is gonna be too extreme, man.
That's okay. Let's break it.
Another thing that the new iPhones have is this thing called night mode. It's essentially making a long exposure. Now granted, I know the iPhone 13 photos are going to be better than the iPhone 12 photos. But are they gonna be that much better? Are they really gonna be that much better? Come on. So one of the things the iPhone could not do was play any games at all. Like, I find that really interesting because, you know, on like today's phones, you can play AAA titles such as PUBG Mobile, today's sponsor. Yeah, I mean, we've played PUBG for years, and PUBG Mobile is a really great way to like play a full AAA title on your phone wherever you are. And they've improved the touchscreen controls so much back from when I first started playing these type of games like 7 years ago. All right, so I'm actually gonna boot up PUBG Mobile here and tell you a little bit about the game while I play. PUBG Mobile is a free-to-play game. You can literally download it right now and play it without having to borrow your mom's money. PUBG Mobile really focuses on the simulation of war. You know, it's got real-world weapons and it's got some realistic physics and stuff, such as weather conditions and like how the bullet drops as you're trying to shoot your enemies. I mean, there's lots of cool updates too. It's constantly updating with new maps, new modes, and honestly, it looks pretty good. It's pretty high res, like the textures are nice and good looking. In the new 1.6 update, there's also like 7 new gameplay modes. So if you're getting bored, well, guess what? New gameplay modes such as Survive Till Dawn. Let's see if you survive till my dawn. This game was actually designed specifically for mobile. It's got customizable controls, training modes, so you can get up and running. You don't have to jump right into the 100-player multiplayer rounds and like get destroyed unless you're like me and don't get destroyed. If you don't like how the touch controls work, you know, you can adjust them, you can change some stuff out, make it a little bit easier for you to play the game. Or you can connect an Xbox or PS4 controller too. Also, what's wild is that PUBG Mobile has partnered with Dune. Read the books, great book, excited for the movie, and PUBG Mobile has partnered with the movie. And speaking of collaborations, they're actually working with Alan Walker again to bring you some really cool cosmetics. All right, I am eating chicken tonight for dinner, because I won, you know, winner, chicken for lunch. Anyway, if you enjoyed any of that, check out the link in the description so you can get to playing PUBG Mobile as well. But for now, we're gonna get back to our iPhone 1 tests. Okay, so we've taken a few photos. I've managed to get them onto the computer. Surprisingly easy to get photos off the original iPhone. I was led to believe that was gonna be very hard. First things first, what I'm noticing is that there's a huge field of view difference between these two phones. The main camera here shoots at around 24 millimeters. This guy shoots at around 37 millimeters, equivalent. So what I actually realized is that with the camera sideways like this, the horizontal field of view was the same as we can see here. Right away, there's a few things that I'm noticing. One, higher resolution. Now this is the sort of situation where we're going to see a very clear winner between the two images. It's like there is detail over here in the original iPhone shot, but we just have more detail in the new one. Dude, I found your new MySpace photo. We're seeing this fold in your shirt, but over here we actually see the cross-hatching pattern of the cloth. Overall, you view it wide, it's a very crispy image. You look at the original, and it's, crispy is not the word I would use. We see like just the tiniest of lines coming across these top towers here. And those are just straight up non-existent in the original. We're getting a lot more of like the specular highlighted detail. All the rough texture that you're seeing in through here, especially right here in the black, we're not seeing any of that detail. We're seeing the large swaths of color and contrast, but no detail. In fact, there's just a lot of noise instead. The exposure abilities of the new phones is going to be drastically improved, so you're able to interpret a lot more light than the original phone was able to do. This is a very good example of what I'm talking about when I say dynamic range. This whole wall here is not in any sunlight. It's being lit entirely from the environment. And yet, phone cameras these days have high enough dynamic range that we can see all that detail. We can even see a lot of the clouds in the sky. Whereas if we were to look at the original, not only is the sky mostly blown out, you cannot see the pole at all. And so you end up with a very, very crunchy photo.
Well, I actually like the contrast on the left.
So you actually really like that contrast. I do think it's still a touch dark. I'd want to lift it all overall, but this is an example of an unsavable artifact. We can't do anything about it. That is lost data. And this is the wonder of night mode, probably my favorite camera feature on the new phones.
Damn.
Right?
Damn.
Exactly. Our eyes have a stupidly wide dynamic range. So when I was looking at Nick in the actual workshop, the image on the right here is what it looked like to my eyes. I'm just not used to actual cameras being able to capture that handheld. I look like a crazy mad scientist. I look like Waldo's cousin. Wow. Look at that crazy motion blur. This one I was doing like a twisty motion. Incredible amounts of motion blur. Surprisingly not that much on the new phone. You can clearly see the rolling shutter artifact in here. The ground is all curvy. Whereas the iPhone 12, very, very straight overall. Very, very little rolling shutter. Good. Here's a good example. Matt was actually waving his hand like this. His hand is super crisp, no motion blur there, and yet over here he's got a blob for hands. And then of course, there's a tremendous amount of noise. Look at all this noise here. If we look at the iPhone image, there's a little bit, oh. Do you know what that looks like to me? I am seeing artificial intelligence leaving a trail. It's not super smooth like I would expect denoising to do. We're seeing some actual like lines of detail that seem to just exist for no reason, almost like a waffle pattern. I'm getting a little bit of those little swirly marks here, especially down here above the notepad. It's weird because it feels like it's adding unnecessary detail that when viewed from wide creates this sort of sense of detail being there. It's weird. So obviously the new phone's cameras look really, really good, but the images look far better than what the hardware should be able to kick out. And the reason for that is a bunch of processing going on behind the scenes of the hardware that we're gonna talk about right now. Okay, so you may know about CPUs and GPUs. Well, there's a new type of processing unit called an NPU, which stands for Neural Processing Unit. It's specifically designed to be able to handle huge data sets really quickly and really efficiently. That's all so that it can execute on machine learning tasks. What does that even mean? Machine learning is the application of systems that can learn from their experiences, so that when it reads it and identifies something that is similar, it's able to accurately guess what you have trained it to guess. So the chip inside of the iPhone 13 Pro can literally process 16 trillion calculations per second using that new NPU. In 2019, they unveiled a technology called Deep Fusion. It actually takes 9 photos all at once. 4 of them are gonna be very high shutter, very sharp. Anything that's bright, it's able to retain those sort of details. And it actually takes 4 additional exposures that allow you to kind of get some of that detail in the shadows. But with those 4 exposures, you're gonna get a lot of noise in them that's gonna change between different shots. So it takes an additional long exposure image that is able to actually kind of filter out some of that noise. And then it's able to kind of recombine all those together to see where the detail is highest and bring that detail back. So if I take a picture right here, boop, boop, I can actually go through and see the Deep Fusion pop into effect when I open the photo. Boop, did you see it there? It sits there for a moment, it processes it in the background using those 16 trillion calculations per second, and then makes a new image. See how there's not too much detail in Nick's hair, and then boop, ton of detail. And I didn't do anything. That's just automatic, and it runs in the background every time you open a photo, which makes me wonder, what would the original iPhone photos look like if we were able to leverage the same type of technology? There is a company called Topaz Labs, and they make 4 different programs, and by using a bunch of machine learning algorithms and models that they've built to enhance your photos. So what I'm hoping to achieve is a higher fidelity image by running it through Gigapixel, which will increase the resolution by a factor of 6. I'm gonna run it through sharpening AI to actually bring back a lot of detail that existed in reality but was not able to be captured by the image. And then if need be, I will slap on some extra denoising to really make a clean, smooth, but crispy image. I'm actually very intrigued to see how that's gonna work out. And I'm interested to see if we can fool anyone else here between what's the new iPhone and the old iPhone. So I've gone through and I've processed all of the images from the original iPhone using Topaz's programs. Well, do you want to see some iPhone 1 photos?
I would love to see your brilliant photography skills in action. That will clearly outrank anything that the iPhone processing could do. Your raw skill will save the day.
So on the left we have the original iPhone photos, and on the right are the processed ones. In this photo here of Nick, notice how like all of the motion blur just goes away. You can really see the detail of the camera, the Canon logo, the ES logo, even the vertical ridges of the little twisty thingy really come back. And you can even see Jordan in the background. Suddenly his face is perfectly crystal clear. It's actually generating new pixels by reading the input image as like a reference. Wow. And it's creating new detail both for resolution and sharpening and denoising. However, when you start zooming in, that's when things really start kind of breaking down. It's generated detail.
Kind of clay-like.
Yeah, it's almost like a comic strip filter type thing.
Yeah, it's almost like you've drawn over what was originally there.
But what's interesting is that when viewed from wide, it literally doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And it's because it's literally creating these strokes of detail that maybe aren't photorealistic, but when viewed as just abstract texture and detail, it makes it look more crisp. It's a weird psychological trick and it works.
That iPhone still was already surprisingly decent. With the AI upscale, you could absolutely call that a much more modern still, and unless you're pixel peeping, totally fine.
Check out some of Wren's results.
All right, so what we're looking at on the left here are the iPhone 12 photos versus the iPhone 1 photos that have been enhanced over here on the right.
Those are almost indistinguishable from each other.
Nice and crispy, but when we zoom in,
Dude, mustache man. But yeah, I definitely feel like there's a lot more compression happening in the iPhone because the data bandwidth is probably not very high on it. So like things like the texture on the wall just get compressed to a flat wash. But you know, who knows how much the iPhone 12 or iPhone 13 is cheating with its AI upscaler too.
So I think what we're learning here is that we can throw the iPhone 13 in the garbage.
thank you, we're just gonna just.
Where's that iPhone 1? I need the iPhone 1. I need the upgrade.
Okay, yeah.
I'll just take that with me. Cool,
yeah.
thank you. New iPhone? Steve Jobs got it right the first time.
You know, props to the iPhone 1, man. I mean, you're doing a great job processing it too, Wren. It's pretty impressive how good the iPhone 1 camera is. It's not quite as good as the latest iPhone, but I really like the vibe of it. It looks like 35mm film from a cheap point and shoot. I love it.
It's that bloom and crunchy contrast that really kind of gives it that sort of like Polaroid look.
It's cool to see how far we've come, but it's also, I think, equally cool to see how far post-processing has come. And honestly, in some ways, this has sort of more character than shooting something on like an iPhone 13 ever would.
Yeah, so now I guess AI has to start figuring out how to add character and aesthetic and style, and then we'd all be out of a job. So it's been really interesting to kind of learn through experimentation where the original iPhone camera kind of stacks up compared to modern cameras, and then where it stacks up when you throw modern software at it. A lot of the camera upgrades that have been happening on modern iPhones do not actually take place inside the camera. They take place inside of the processing unit and the software that leverages that. Yes, obviously the hardware in these cameras have gotten better, significantly so. But I would argue that I think the future of imagery is computational. It's part of why I was saying that I don't think the actual camera sensor in my phone is as good as it could be, because it doesn't need to be. Thanks for watching.